4 minutes, 12 enemy fighters, one gunner who refused to wait his turn to die. On March 6, 1944, a single decision in the tail of a B-17 turned a defensive position into a killing ground and sparked a doctrine that would save thousands of lives. History remembers aces and squadrons. It rarely remembers the man at the back of the plane. On March 6, 1944, one tail gunner changed that by attacking first, surviving the impossible, and teaching a generation of gunners how intimidation could win battles before bullets did. Michael Donovan's journey began in South Boston, a place where survival required striking first and striking hard. With a father on the docks and a brother in the Golden Gloves, Mike learned early that hesitation led to injury, while action ensured survival. By age 17, he had recorded 32 street fights, winning 28 and losing only 4 because he had started his defense too late. Following Pearl Harbor, Donovan joined the Army Air Forces. Though initially slated for ground crew, he demanded gunnery school. Instructors there characterized him as excessively aggressive and reckless, noting his dangerous willingness to draw return fire. Donovan's legendary retort was that dead gunners lacked the ability to shoot back, whereas live ones did not. He finished third in his class, fueled not by raw accuracy, but by unmatched speed. He could lock onto targets faster than any peer. His strategy was to hunt fighters before they ever reached his designated firing zone. In March 1944, Donovan arrived at the 391st Bombardment Group in Framlingham. Hell's Fury already carried a dark reputation, having endured 2 near-fatal encounters in just 3 missions. The previous gunner, Sergeant Eddie Morrison, had transferred out after declaring the position cursed and predicting the next man's death. Donovan volunteered without hesitation. During a personal interview, Captain James Whitmore questioned if Donovan realized the tail gunner position suffered a 38% casualty rate. Donovan countered that those were 62% odds he was willing to accept. He explained his philosophy simply. He didn't wait to be shot, he shot first. Whitmore concluded the man was insane enough to fit the crew perfectly. On March 1, 1944, during a raid on Schweinfurt, Donovan destroyed 1 Bf-109 and damaged 2. It was his method, rather than the kills, that drew scrutiny. Instead of waiting for fighters to commit to an attack run, as prescribed by defensive tactics, Donovan fired long-range bursts at formations still assembling. He argued that while a burst at 800 yards used 20 rounds, forcing a fighter to break its pattern saved a 10,000-pound aircraft and 9 lives. The logic held. On March 3rd, Donovan tested a new theory. Rather than tracking the lead attacker, he targeted the second plane, the wingman, who was flying a predictable pattern and not expecting fire. The wingman's explosion caused the lead pilot to break off in shock, causing the entire assault to fail. Upon landing, Sergeant Frank Murphy noted that Donovan had expended 80% of his ammunition. Donovan maintained that since they hadn't been hit, it was a trade he would make every day. However, Donovan sought even greater effectiveness. He spent the night prior to the mission studying the German echelon formations, noting how they used lead planes to draw fire, while wingmen exploited a gunner's focus. He realized American gunners were merely reacting, while the Germans dictated the timing. He wondered what would happen if the initiative were reversed. Yesterday morning, March 5th, during the pre-mission briefing for the Augsburg raid, intelligence warned of 2,500 German fighters. Whitmore warned his crew of the impending danger, urging them to stay sharp. During the pre-flight briefing only yesterday, Donovan requested permission to depart from standard defensive protocols. He proposed a strategy of aggressive fire, intending to engage enemy fighters before they could commit to their attack runs. He argued that forcing the enemy to defend would prevent the real fight entirely. When Captain Whitmore expressed concern over the rapid consumption of ammunition, Donovan reminded him that the current defensive doctrine had resulted in a 38% casualty rate for tail gunners. He insisted it was time to stop waiting to be targeted. Whitmore granted him one mission to prove the effectiveness of his theory. The crew took off at 6:47 hours, assembling over East Anglia and crossing the English Channel. By 9:19, 12 bandits, German Bf-109s, were spotted approaching from the 6 o'clock high position. At 2,000 yards, a distance where standard procedure demanded silence and ammunition conservation, Donovan opened fire. Although the tracers arced through empty sky, the effect was immediate. The German formation scattered. When Whitmore warned him over the intercom that he was wasting rounds, Donovan urged him to watch the result. The Germans regrouped, but their second approach was hesitant and probing rather than a confident dive. The initiative had shifted. Donovan tracked the new lead fighter, waiting until it reached 1,500 yards before using short bursts to intimidate the pilot. While most of the formation broke again, one experienced wingman maintained his course. Donovan allowed the veteran to close to 1,000 yards, filling his sights before unleashing a sustained 200-round barrage. The Bf-109 flew directly into the stream of tracers and disintegrated. As the remaining 11 fighters regrouped to split his attention, a standard counter tactic, Donovan coordinated with the waist gunners, Sergeants Price and Johnson. He focused exclusively on the 6 o'clock group, downing 2 more fighters in 30 seconds. Terrified, the remaining 9 fighters fled. 15 minutes later, a full staffel of 18 fighters returned, attacking simultaneously from multiple vectors to overwhelm the tail's defense. Donovan ignored the flanking threats, trusting the other gunners to hold them off, and focused his violence on the 6 Bf-109s diving directly at the tail. Calculating the 400-knot closing speed, he realized he had exactly 7 seconds to act. He walked his tracers into the lead aircraft's path at 800 yards, shattering its canopy. Using pure instinct, he then led the second fighter, firing where physics dictated the plane would be in 2 seconds. It exploded in an orange fireball. The survivors immediately broke into full defensive maneuvers, fleeing from the single gun position. By the time the formation reached Augsburg, Donovan was down to his final 400 rounds. The Germans, having lost 6 aircraft to 1 man, shifted tactics. 48 enemy fighters, a mix of Bf-109s and FW-190s, began shadowing Hell's Fury, waiting to strike simultaneously. Because the bomber had drifted 3 miles away from the main formation and had no P-51 escort, it was completely isolated. Donovan contacted Whitmore with a final, desperate proposal. He wanted to attack. He explained that if he engaged the massive formation while they were still organizing, he could disrupt their coordination and force them to scatter before they could launch their combined assault. Faced with 48 encroaching fighters, Donovan argued that defensive tactics were useless against 20-to-1 odds. He told Captain Whitmore that their only chance was to strike while the enemy was still vulnerable during their organization phase. Whitmore, though skeptical about the ammunition cost, ultimately authorized the move, jokingly threatening to write Donovan's family an angry letter if the gamble failed. Donovan didn't hesitate. As the Germans established their attack vectors at 2,000 yards, he unleashed a maximum sustained barrage. Rather than targeting specific planes, he reported aiming for the space where coordination happened. The result was catastrophic for the Luftwaffe. Tracers ripped through the formation's core, causing a fire in one Bf-109 and a mid-air collision between 2 others. The massive assault disintegrated into a chaotic scramble for survival. The reprieve was short-lived. Only 90 seconds later, the Germans regrouped and swarmed the tail from the 6 o'clock position with overwhelming violence. Donovan later described picking his targets by identifying the psychological center of the pack. He fired precise 30-round bursts into 3 consecutive aircraft, downing 1 and sending 2 others away in smoke. As the remaining 9 fighters closed to within 400 yards, 20mm cannon fire began shredding the metal of Hell's Fury. Despite the shrieking metal and the shuddering of the aircraft, Donovan maintained what the crew called mechanical precision. He reportedly looked into the faces of the young German pilots as he fired at point-blank range, destroying 2 more before his guns finally went dry. In that 45-second engagement, he had claimed 6 more fighters, but he was now officially defenseless. The German survivors, now numbering 27 from the original 48, realized the tail guns were silent. They moved in for what looked like a methodical execution, approaching from a low stern vector in a tight, slow formation. Donovan, despite having 0 ammunition, utilized his final weapon, psychology. He traversed his empty barrels to track the lead pilot with perfect discipline. The German leader, seeing the twin .50 calibers aligned with his cockpit, broke formation in a hard right turn. His instinctual fear of Donovan's reputation overrode the tactical knowledge that the guns were likely empty. The rest of the formation followed their leader, fleeing the phantom threat of a gunner who had already destroyed 21 of their comrades. Hell's Fury continued to Augsburg, successfully dropped its payload, and destroyed the target factory. Throughout the return flight, German radio intercepts revealed a widespread warning to avoid the insane tail gunner at all costs. The bomber eventually touched down at Framlingham at 16:47 hours. Ground crews later counted 47 bullet holes and 13 cannon strikes, noting that while the rudder was cracked and the hydraulic lines were destroyed, the crew had returned without a single casualty. Donovan was found on the tarmac shortly after, calmly smoking a cigarette. He simply remarked that he had used everything they had loaded because he couldn't afford to waste a single bullet. By sunset yesterday, the legend of Hell's Fury had already permeated every barracks in Framlingham. When the bomber finally settled on the tarmac after 9 hours in the air, the ground crew discovered that every single one of the 2,000 rounds loaded into the tail had been expended. Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan, remarkably calm and steady-handed, sat nearby as records were tallied. Through radio intercepts and visual confirmations from late-arriving escorts, it was reported that Donovan had secured 12 confirmed kills, 4 probables, and 3 damaged aircraft, all within a mere 4 minutes of combat. The news traveled fast, reaching 8th Air Force headquarters by the evening. Major General Frederick Anderson arrived personally to interview the man who had effectively dismantled the Luftwaffe's coordination. He found Donovan performing routine maintenance on his weapons. During their discussion, Donovan outlined a philosophy that would change the war, a shift from passive defense to aggressive intimidation. He argued that engaging the enemy during their formation phase exploited a critical window of vulnerability. When the general asked if this could be taught, Donovan noted that it required a specific temperament, men who viewed themselves as hunters rather than targets. Anderson promptly reassigned him to training command, famously asking if the lives of 9 men were more important than the lives of 9,000. Over the following weeks, what became known as the Donovan Doctrine was codified into 5 revolutionary principles. Seize the initiative. Engage during the enemy's formation phase to force a defensive reaction. Psychological warfare. Use early bursts to intimidate and cause hesitation in the formation. Focus fire. When outnumbered, concentrate all firepower on the most dangerous sector rather than dividing attention. Ammunition economy through aggression. Recognize that 30 rounds used to scatter a formation was more efficient than 300 used in a chaotic dogfight. Accept risk. Prioritize collective survival over individual safety. Despite initial pushback from conservative instructors who labeled the tactics suicidal, the results were indisputable. Statistics from the previous day's actions began to ripple through the fleet. Before Donovan's methods were adopted, the tail gunner casualty rate stood at 38%. By June, it had dropped to 23%. Even more telling was the fact that German attack completion rates plummeted from 52% to just 27%. Aggressive fire was disrupting enemy coordination so thoroughly that more than half of all planned Luftwaffe strikes were aborted before they even began. Donovan went on to train 300 specialist gunners, emphasizing that confidence was born from action, while fear was the result of reaction. His graduates, including legends like Sergeant Thomas Bailey and Robert Chen, accounted for nearly half of all tail gunner kills in Europe by the war's end. The Germans eventually adapted their own manuals to include sections on American aggressive gunners, with the chilling recommendation that pilots should simply avoid engaging bombers that displayed signs of early, sustained, and accurate fire. The reputation of the insane gunners had become a more effective shield than any armor plating. By the end of the war, the psychological battle had completely reversed. German pilots reportedly feared American gunners more than the bombers feared the fighters. While the mission only yesterday marked the end of Michael Donovan's personal combat career, his influence was just beginning. He never flew another sortie, spending the remainder of the war training others. Yet conservative estimates later credited his doctrine with saving 300 American bombers and 3,000 aircrew. The Donovan Doctrine eventually rippled through the air forces of the Soviet Union, Britain, and even post-war Germany, as military historians integrated his principles of aggressive defense into global combat standards. Despite his massive impact, Donovan returned to South Boston to work in construction, rarely speaking of the war. During the few instances he was tracked down by journalists in the 1960s, he declined formal interviews, stating simply that he had done what needed doing, and that the 300 other gunners were the real story. However, Sergeant Bailey, a graduate of his program, later clarified that Donovan's true contribution was changing their mindset. He taught them that survival didn't come from hiding or conserving resources, but from making the enemy too terrified to attack. The 1945 8th Air Force analysis supported this, showing a 43% reduction in bomber losses, from 14 per thousand sorties down to 8, specifically attributed to gunners who chose to shoot first. Captured Luftwaffe reports from the summer of 1944 confirmed this shift in perspective. One June report noted that American tail gunners had adopted a strategy of sustained fire during the approach phase, which effectively disrupted German attack coordination. The Luftwaffe recommended switching to high-angle diving attacks from the 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock positions to avoid Donovan's disciples. But German pilots found these maneuvers difficult to coordinate and often encountered equally aggressive waist gunners. Internal German analysis eventually attributed 28% of the decline in their own effectiveness specifically to these new American tactics. Donovan passed away in 1998 at the age of 76, his Boston Globe obituary largely focusing on his 16 years in construction and his family. The quiet service at St. Augustine Cemetery, attended by only 17 people, gave no hint that the man being buried had altered the course of aerial warfare. There was no 21-gun salute, only a gathering of veteran gunners at a nearby bar the night before. Bailey, then 74, toasted his mentor, noting that Mike's legacy wasn't just the 12 kills from March 6th, but the thousands of lives saved because an entire generation of gunners learned to be aggressive. Today, the principles established in those 4 minutes of combat on March 6, 1944, remain foundational in modern military training, from transport aircraft defense to automated missile systems that prioritize early engagement to disrupt enemy coordination. Michael Donovan changed warfare not by waiting for death, but by going hunting first. One man, 2,000 rounds, 12,000 lives saved. History is full of legends hiding in plain sight, and we find them every week. If you're a student of the past and a fan of the bold, subscribe now. Let's make sure the world never forgets the Donovan Doctrine of hitting first. See you in the next mission.